This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Squarespace, the most professional, user-friendly, customer-supported, easy-to-use way to make your very own professional website, portfolio, blog, or online store. Get a free trial by going to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to sign up, use the offer code THUMBS at checkout for 10% off your first order. That's squarespace.com with the offer code THUMBS. How does this podcast start again? Oh, I introduce it.
It's, and I...
No, you introduce it.
I say it's, you
Then
say, and this is Idle
When I
Thumbs,
say
whatever
it's,
number.
You say it's Idle Thumbs, whatever.
Oh my god. This exact intro, literally all of those words have been said so many times.
Yep, it's true.
Do you ever wish you could rewind time?
Nope.
Oh, that's good.
Actually, I do every day of my life.
Yeah. Don't we all? I wish I could rewind time to back before I said I don't wish I could rewind time, so that I said I wished I could, so that in case a genie was listening, I would get that wish.
I don't know what podcast you think this is, Chris, but it's a video game podcast. There's no genies here. Unless it's the genie as represented in Aladdin for the Super Nintendo or Aladdin for the Sega Genesis, and one of those two genies is better. I guarantee it.
One of them was touched by an animator.
It's February 2018.
And this is Idle Thumbs. I am Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin. Oh man, things are just decaying rapidly on this podcast.
I'm taking a page out of Nick Brecken's Important If True playbook.
And even not listing the number anymore.
Oh shit, I didn't list the number.
Oh, no number.
What number is this, 316 or something?
Do the readers really care?
I care.
Is this Idle Thumbs 316 as held up in many football games across the history of the NFL?
I have no idea what that means.
It's a John 3:16 reference, Chris.
Oh, what is John 3:16?
A Bible verse that I can't remember.
okay,
I think it's
I mean,
for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, blah, 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 blah. It's the one about how Jesus dies for your sins.
Why is that a football game thing?
It's so everyone can find Jesus by when watching the NFL televised.
Oh.
It was just there was a guy who held that sign up at a lot of games for a long time.
Huh.
He was a notable NFL audience man.
God, I was right. It is Idle Thumbs 3:16.
Yeah.
Brought to you by your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Brought to you by our Lord and Savior, video games.
Welcome to it. Welcome to video games, you two.
Thanks.
How's it going? I feel like I had something to say. Now I don't. Just pretty much my life. That's my podcast life. Well, there is a game that I think we can talk about, Nick, you and I at least, called, although I think Jake would like this game too, called Celeste. This was a game I literally did not even know this game existed until a couple days ago, and then suddenly I saw people tweeting about it and talking about it and saying it's amazing, and based on essentially I genuinely didn't even really know what genre it was, and I just got it on Steam and I downloaded it and I started playing it, and I think it's great.
Yep.
Celeste is a side-scrolling, very intense platformer. I would say almost in the vein of a Super Meat Boy or something, except that, I mean, mechanically in the vein of Super Meat Boy in the sense that it is really requires precision. There's a lot of kind of wall jumping and general platforming acrobatics.
So like movement mechanics internalization over Mega Man style memorization, potentially?
Yes. But you do need to
both.
learn.
It's both.
Yeah, you do need to sort of learn the level like you do in Mega Man, but not in a way that feels cheap or unfair.
Okay, I mean in Meat Boy you also end up internalizing the level, but it's a different feeling than Mega Man is for me.
I mean, I guess the thing that is technically more similar to Mega Man is that these are actual levels that that are big. You know, these are big levels that are contiguous. That
was another question. When sort of in the sort of Meat Boy. In the post-Meat Boy platforming world, the other example is Ori and the Blind Forest, which has the sort of Meat Boy style type movement, but is a huge, never-ending Metroidvania world.
Right, and just to keep, I guess, like defining this game in even more granular terms, which may or may not be necessary.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's all these things are
There's
actually...
so many of these games that sort of play with
and
these
all these
rule
things
sets.
are significant to how this game actually feels. Unlike something like Ori, each screen is discrete.
Okay.
So you to get to the next screen, you have to like complete the screen.
But
the board.
Unlike Mega Man, though, you can and often have to go back to a screen that you previously traversed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I've now internalized Celeste.
Yep. You'd win it if you played it. You'd beat the game.
Yeah, I understand the rules of this game. I can master it.
Yeah.
I can master these boards. Conquer the boards.
So this game is really difficult, and I think importantly is at least the amount I've played, which is several hours. I actually streamed this game, maybe the first 2 or 3 levels, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they are long. And they get longer, it seems to me, at least the amount I've played. So if you want to watch me play this game, you can do so at our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/idlevideos. But I really enjoyed it, and I'll probably stream more of it, actually, maybe this weekend, because I think I have some time. And I think it's fantastic. I mean, it has a lot of what I love in games of this nature, which is a very highly tuned set of movement mechanics rather than combat mechanics, which is something I really enjoy in platformers like this. There is a level that has enemies to deal with, but the nature of that enemy is even in itself interesting and novel and not in any way like sort of just jumping on a bunch of automatons or shooting them or whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that intrinsically.
Not that there's anything wrong with automatons.
Right. But it's just a game that is both, I think, very... it owes a lot to games like it in the past, but is also novel in ways that keep it from feeling dusty or unimaginative. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Yeah. You know what's interesting, actually, is this game started as a game jam game, and you can still play it on... sorry, what's the developer's name again? Thorson, right? Mike?
Oh, it's Matt Makes Games.
Matt.
That's Towerfall, right?
Yeah,
Towerfall guy. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, if you go to his website, he has a link to the game jam version of this game, and he made it for like a Pico 8 game jam, which what is that? I think it's a fake console. It's like it's a
Pico 8 is a fake
console.
Yes, Pico 8 is a hobbyist game development platform where they sort of invented hardware specs, and I think at this point there's a full there's programming languages and authoring tools for a game console that never existed, where it has its own palette restrictions and its own resolution and its own way of sort of how it draws and redraws the screen that was sort of inspired by the limitations of old kind of on the cusp between 8 and 16-bit game consoles, but with a lot of modern affordances for sort of indies who want those style constraints but don't literally want to have to deal with the bullshit of writing a Super Nintendo game, but who sort of like that feel. So there's the Pico 8 community is huge. It's one of those things that I've always wanted to get into because Pico 8 games tweet really well, it turns out, because there's lots of little just tiny images from
it's bold
weird
colors,
weird Pico 8 rendering experiences or super brash pixel art,
and you can play them in a
looks,
web browser too.
And
that's cool.
Unsurprisingly, people have made like little dedicated Raspberry Pi hardware that can run Pico 8 based stuff.
Sense.
So you can there are Pico 8 like fan consoles and stuff.
Nick, did you find the Easter egg where you can play the original Pico 8 version of Celeste inside of Celeste?
No, I did not.
I definitely wouldn't have, except that in classic fashion, someone on the stream helped me get there, and it's. I was it was totally ruinous to me because it was by this point late at night when I was playing, and I was still like progressing in the game. I was still able to succeed, but I could feel that sensation of almost like gravity on my brain cells. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where it's just like, oh.
So was it difficult that then someone was like, what if we could drill down to a different other Pico 8 for you to learn right now?
I was already in the middle of this level.
Or a different other Celeste.
That was huge. And it was one of these, it was a level where, I mean, I don't think this is really a spoiler because it's not, I just don't think it counts as a spoiler. There's a level that's basically a hotel, and you have to sort of clean the hotel, but the way you do that is just by getting to 3 different rooms and sort of completing these 3 objectives. And I got through, I was almost about to get the second one complete, or maybe the third one. And in chat, I was like, oh my God, I've been playing this one level for so long. Like, how much longer of this level do I have? Like, I'm so tired. And someone in chat was like, oh, I think after you finish cleaning the next thing, you're like maybe almost halfway done with the level. And I was like, oh no, oh, this is brutal. And then I finally finished cleaning the whole hotel, which I originally had hoped would be the end of the level, but it definitely wasn't, according to this person in chat. And then someone's like, oh, before you leave, make sure to go find this Easter egg. It'll be fun. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll go find some secret, and it'll be a good stopping point, and I'll just quit the game. And then I find it, and it's an entire other game inside of the thing, which I didn't realize it was like an original game that this was based on. I assumed it was just a fun joke.
Little Easter egg thing,
what if Celeste like had been an NES game in the fiction of like whatever. I didn't realize it. And so I started playing it assuming I would just finish it in a few minutes, and it just kept going and going and going and going, and it's an entire game unto itself. And then by the end of that, I was just like, oh no, my whole body is just cellularly failing
the
here.
idea that you fell through your monitor then into a pinprick that contained an entire pocket universe of the same scale as the other one you're already in. Good.
I was almost in a hallucinatory state. And then,
did you find the Game Boy Celeste that's inside of the Pico 8 one?
God, that would be incredible. I was actually thinking when I was playing it, what an interesting conceit for a game it would be to keep going inside,
like that fractally deep. Where it just
I thought that almost kind of like. Sort of like a Frog Fractions thing, but not so much about the sort of wackiness of it and more trying to like deconstruct the game itself.
One could conceivably nest roguelikes inside of roguelikes in that way.
That's what Frog Fraction 2 is kind of like.
Yeah, but in a way that it just would literally be infinite content that then has infinite fractal content inside of it, and you have to choose when you get back out of it.
There actually was a game like that. It was Jason Rohrer, I think, Under a Starfield Sky.
Okay.
Or something. Did either of you guys ever play that?
No.
I hope I'm remembering the developer right, and I'm hoping I'm remembering the name of the game. But yeah, it was essentially that. It was like you can sort of go inside enemies, and then each enemy is itself a procedurally generated level, and so you eventually, you start to lose track of how many fractal inception levels deep.
It's inside a Starfield Sky?
Inside a Starfield Sky? Yeah, that sounds right.
An infinite recursive tactical shooter for one player by Jason Rohrer is the description of
so
that.
I was almost right, yeah. And I think it was sort of a really interesting experiment, but it ultimately felt so endless and huge that I couldn't really grab onto anything. I mean, the version of it I was sort of imagining was definitely one that had more of a structure, a sort of intentional structure to it.
Yeah.
But Inside a Starfield Sky was a really interesting experiment in the vein of what you're talking about.
There is sort of a like mid-20th century sci-fi short story conceit to a fractal game that you can lose yourself inside of, and people get lost in different layers and don't necessarily come out.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you could do it. I mean, there's a version of it that's sort of a narrative thing, and there's a version of it that's almost purely...
Right, I mean, just that kind of game seems like a conceit out of something like The Veldt or something like that.
Oh, you mean like that game fictionally existing inside of a...
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, good pull, The Veldt. Wow. It's a short story.
Yeah, it's a Ray Bradbury short story.
Yeah, I think it is Ray Bradbury, yeah. Anyway, what
are we talking about?
Yeah. We're talking about how Chris
collapsing in my office.
Chris's Celeste-like experience.
Yeah. It probably didn't come through as me being a total basket case, but in my head I just was degrading. And then I eventually just signed off. The other thing that was keeping me from leaving was like, fuck, because this little game that I found is sort of an Easter egg. I'm like, is it just a throwaway thing where if I leave, all my progress will be saved? Like, I'm first of all, who fucking cares? Like, what difference does it make? But to me, in my stupid neurotic brain, I was like, well, if I've already sunk so much time into the Pico 8 Celeste, like what if I lose my progress in Pico 8 Celeste? Which, I mean, this is someone who almost never completes video games in the first place. What the hell? Like, what do I think the game police are going to come and like arrest me for not having finished the Pico 8 game inside the other game I'm also not going to finish? Like, what the fuck difference? But anyway.
So Nick, what's your experience with Celeste, Ben?
If you don't finish it, it drills down into a Police Quest style game where they arrest you.
For not following procedure.
God.
But speaking of which, I know this isn't probably what you meant to talk about, Nick, but I think it's a really amazing thing. Our friend Duncan Fife, who is the writer of the podcast Something True on this very podcast network, and you should definitely listen to it if you haven't. It's a very funny history podcast, very short episodes, which is nice. He wrote recently an extensive history of
it's the fourth Police Quest,
yes,
right?
Yeah, the Police Quest series generally, but specifically the fourth Police Quest adventure game from Sierra Online in like the early 90s. I forget what year
I don't remember
Police Quest 4 came out.
I think it was mid-90s.
Mid-90s, yeah. And that game was famously, I mean, I remember this being advertised at the time, designed by Daryl F. Gates, the very controversial former police chief of the LAPD who presided over that department during the Rodney King beating and riots. And so he wrote a piece about Daryl Gates' involvement with Sierra and Police Quest that was published on Waypoint. And it is a absolutely fascinating read. And if you remember anything about the Police Quest games, or even if you don't, it's just a really, really interesting.
Yeah, he frames it really well in terms of the sort of public reaction to Daryl Gates' existence at the time, and also the article includes interviews with developers at Sierra Online from that time and what they thought about Daryl Gates just showing up in their office.
Yeah,
I didn't put that stuff together at the time. I wasn't really a big Sierra player, and I was just right on the cusp of sort of I knew the news events of the Rodney King trial, but I didn't really understand the politics. Yeah. But now looking back and knowing that it's called Police Quest Open Season, like that name has such a different light. Understanding sort of the political ramifications of all that. Anyway, that article is really good.
It's very, very good.
It has very high bearing on what happens if you ever skimp on your Celeste playthrough.
Indeed. Sorry to derail that stupid joke, Nick.
That's fine.
Yeah, Nick. So what is your Celeste take or whatever?
I don't know how much more there's to say about it. I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm probably further along than you are, Chris. Actually, I kind of just started,
I would imagine so,
motoring through it yesterday.
Oh, that's cool.
And I don't know. It's just it's refreshing to play a game that it has the sort of core movement mechanic. The dash and the and climb, and then beyond that, the character doesn't really gain anything else. In terms of what
I love that.
Yeah, it's just so nice to not have to worry about what can I do now? Can I double dash? Like they're doing all of that stuff in the actual level design, which is just so refreshing and nice. And they consistently I don't know how
mechanics get added, but not necessarily player mechanics.
Right, that's what. Yeah, and they modify you technically, but they're done. It's just done in a way that's just always
the enemy
tutorialized in a nice way. Really, I mean, because the beginning of each level will just sort of include a fairly throwaway jump into this bubble and it will rocket you upward or left to the right, whatever, and you can kind of just play around with it. And then they start layering in the challenges, which is just really every level just seems very well constructed from the standpoint of not throwing everything at you all at once, which is really in a game that seems to be in that genre of Super Meat Boy, where we're gonna kill you a lot of a million times. It's gonna be really funny because you're gonna just
will happen.
Yeah, which will happen. But and there are an obvious few levels or puzzles, what have you, that are designed to sort of smush you up against the wall, and you go, oh, ha ha ha, I didn't expect that. But it's not really overall a malicious game.
It's not a gotcha game.
It's not a gotcha game, which I appreciate.
It's just difficult.
Yeah,
it's not a shadow gambling loot box based situation.
I mean, there's just stuff in it. I mean, Nick, I'm glad you raised the point of sort of it's not a game where you gain new player abilities. Which I mean, I said I love that, which doesn't mean
it's bad.
There's anything wrong with doing that in general, but a thing I just really love in video games is, or at least video games of this type, is that feeling that your fluency is increasing, the player, and therefore you have more, you're able to do more in the world, not because you've gotten a certain number of points or whatever, but because you're actually getting more fluent yourself. And then also it means, I think because the slate of things that are power-ups in platformers has become so well explored and codified, often there's almost a sort of paint by numbers. It's now you get the double jump, now you get the this. And don't get me wrong, I fucking love double jump. Double jump is a joy. But that stuff was often pretty similar across games. Whereas in this game, because everything's coming through the environment, as you say, there are just weird things I haven't seen in any of their game. Like the level that has the weird blobby star fields that at first you just butt into and you're I don't understand. I guess there's just roadblocks all over the level. But then eventually you're able to sort of swim through them in a way that is almost like flying, kind of, but is so specific to this game, and it's just, wow, I've just never encountered this thing, or rarely anyway, encountered this idea in a platformer, because all the ideas are coming through the environment, which is just actually way less explored than player mechanics.
You know what it feels like to me a little bit? Like, it feels like some of the levels almost feel like you're inside of like a pinball machine that somebody else is playing, and you have to you're playing as the ball and have to kind of figure out like what vector to throw yourself on that will then like push you into the hole. Like it feels like very you have to kind of look at every little element of the level and then figure out how you're going to use your one movement thing to just like bounce yourself off a thing, and like it's just, and it's very, very satisfying.
Meat Boy has that too. I would say that's what this game shares in common with Meat Boy, is that you like load the level and you're like, all right, let's take this in, like, let's figure out what's going on. And sometimes you have to play through it try and fail a couple times to understand what the parameters are that you're even butting up against. Yeah. But like once you understand what to do, it's like, oh, it's on now. Yep. Let's do this.
I mean, the nice thing about this game is it's just charming. I mean, it's just a very like pleasant game to play, and
it is. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys didn't talk about the aesthetic of Celeste at all. That is a thing that when I think of Meat Boy and of Ori and the Blind Forest, I definitely, and even something like N++, the aesthetic is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's very bold and. Yeah.
Is that the case in Celeste as well, or is
I like how Celeste looks. I think it's very pleasant, and as Nick sort of said,
it looks pretty functional though.
It is
like function first.
Yeah, which is good. This isn't a game that I'm not like bowled over by how amazingly beautiful it is or anything. I think I'm also just a little bit wearied out by pixel art at this point. Sure. It's been such a dominating force in indie games, particularly games of this type, for so many years now, that I think a lot of the
it's funny though
charm
that Super
and novelty
Meat Boy
is kind of worn off.
Super Meat Boy, Spelunky, Ori and the Blind Forest, and N, none of those are pixel art games.
That's true. That's a good point.
Although some of them started off as pixel art games.
Some of them did have pixel art progenitors. Yeah. The pixel art progenitors is deep lore. Once you get like 8 levels deep in Celeste,
you finally get to some weird like 2-frame idling like Game Boy Final Fantasy elders who tell you things.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Celeste. Unless you have any other.
No, I think that about covers it.
Actually, here, let's cap it off with an email from Alex, who writes, a game called Celeste comes out on the 25th of January. It's done by Matt Makes Games, the developer behind Towerfall, which I would love to see Thumbs play with couch multiplayer. Upon prompting, the developer described it as Dark Souls meets Mario. I want to see Nick play this. Thanks for being awesome as usual, Thumbs. So there you go, Nick. The people demand you
Celeste
playing
has
Celeste.
Same-screen multiplayer?
No, I think he or she just wants to see
just wants as a couch co-op, just for us to just all be in a room together playing it. I see.
Oh, I don't know that's what they mean, but I think they think this person is interested in seeing Nick play this game in some form or fashion. However,
Nick, play it.
Comes.
Okay, I'll speedrun it.
Nice.
Oh man,
you'll speedrun it.
This
is a good internalization game.
It actually includes a built-in speedrun timer, which I feel like is actually.
I thought you were about to say it does. I thought you were about to say it does include a built-in internalization meter. Like, well, excuse me. The game jam it came from is Wizard Jam.
Nick, you had something to talk about. You have played something called They Are Billions, which I have absolutely no idea what that is even now.
My assumption is that's sort of like an HQ ripoff.
Oh, my assumption is that they're billions.
Oh.
I assume. I mean, Nick, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I assume that they are billions.
They are.
Are they?
They are.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, no, this is a game by...
Wow.
That's it.
They are billions.
They are billions. It's a game.
They are billions. They are billions, or it's just smaller text, a game. Sorry, Nick.
It's a sort
of... What is
billions?
billions?
Billions are... it's a number so you play.
I'm sorry, we've ruined Nick. We've broken him.
You're just
Nick is now billions of pieces on the floor.
Nick is billions.
Nick is billions times angry at us for ruining this segment. Nick, what is They Are Billions? Let's hear. I hear your our classic segment. They Are Billions.
Yeah, it's a strategy game. I'll get that much out. What is there to say about that now? So it's a strategy game. So it's a strategy game that basically, like, if you took Oh gosh, like fuck me. There's a game that's very much like this game, and I need to reference it. Hold on, we're just restarting this whole fucking segment.
No, incorrect. I really like that you said it's oh gosh, oh fuck.
Stronghold. Stronghold is what I'm trying to think of.
What is Stronghold? I don't remember.
Oh, you've never played Stronghold?
Like
Stronghold's fantastic. Stronghold's a game where you...
Oh, the PC game from like 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
Yeah. It's essentially a wave-based RTS game. I mean, it's an RTS where you build up a base. Occasionally, like a wave of enemies will come and attack you, but otherwise, you're kind of managing resources. It's almost as if like an Anno game included like a sort of wave-based
like Anno Under Siege.
Yeah, kind of.
Anno Billions.
Yeah.
Anno, they are billions, but the years still add up
like
to...
adds up to 9 or whatever.
It's 9 billion.
What
Anno, they are 27 billion.
So they are billions. It is similar. You like create a base and defend against, I assume, billions.
Yeah, it's got the same kind of resource chaining that like an Anno game does, and you're sort of initially just carving out a little space. But I mean, it's a very interesting game. It from an RTS standpoint, I haven't played a game quite like this where I'm immediately like my soul just feels crushed under the weight of like having to just survive in this son of the billion pounds of weight.
Nick, you just have to not get interrupted. You just have to keep going. It's never going to end.
Yeah. Well, the name's actually kind of funny. So, like, I mean, I'll tell you a little story. I'll tell you a little story about why this game is hilarious. So, I'm playing the game.
Okay, wait, hold on. Before you do that,
don't. What are you doing?
No, because I actually genuinely...
Okay, what is the game?
I've confused myself. Yeah, please just in a few sentences describe the game from square one.
Okay. It's a strategy game where... God damn it.
I'm sorry.
It's 10 o'clock now. It's 10 o'clock.
No, it's okay. Just keep... It's okay. It's okay.
You're just going to do it again. You're just...
No. Just keep going. Just
1 billion shushes. Nick, I'm absolutely not going to, so let's hear it.
God damn it.
Nick, take your headphones out so you can't hear us.
Yeah.
And then just keep going.
I'll just record my own podcast.
You can put them back in once you're done explaining what the game is.
So the premise of the game is that you're building up a colony. You start with like a handful of RTS style units, little like soldier guys, and you are plunking down buildings that collect resources or use those resources. For instance, like a house needs a certain amount of food for you to place. So you place the house. Now the house gives you gold. Now you also have more, population. It's the same kind of like Anno chain of like, I need to kind of constantly expand my base.
Resource management
and sort of, like, and so it's that mixed with like an immediate, just surrounding horde of enemies.
Right.
Like, and the experience of playing this game reminds me a little bit of playing a game like StarCraft or something when you're a kid and you just kind of like ramp the difficulty up of like the artificial intelligence to like max and add like 7 enemies around you and then just see how long you can survive. That's essentially like, and just like wall up in your base and just build a bunch of units. Like that is basically the conceit of this game, which is that it is a survival game. Like you survive as long as you can, and at the end of like, you're just inevitably going to die, and then it gives you a score based on how long you've made it. So it's like as if Anno, like you would hate this game, Chris. It's like as if Anno at every moment of every second, you're just like impending doom is just like pushing in on you.
That would ruin me.
Yeah.
What are the units in which the score is defined?
I believe it's...
Are they billions?
There are scores and scores.
No, it's thousands. It's hundreds. They screwed up.
Okay. Conceivably, though.
Yeah, they fucked it up.
If you're good enough... If you get good at the game,
if you get to 2 billion guys that who have attempted to beset you, then the words "they are billions" show up. Then that you finally get the delayed title card.
Yeah,
it says they were billions.
All right, Nick. So what happened to you in this video game?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm playing this game and basically the God damn it.
Just keep going. Keep going.
The game.
Nick, I'm trying to simulate the experience of you playing this game, where you're just trying to explain it.
That's not the experience of playing this game.
Beset.
That's not actually experience. So I'll tell you what the experience of playing this game is.
You're just beset by a guy saying there are billions over and over again, and asking if there were billions or not.
Not true. Actually, the game holds you in suspense in that regard, which is what I'm trying to. The story I'm trying to tell here.
All right.
If we can stop saying they are billions.
Unclear.
Children.
If that's possible, but let's
try. So you carve out this base. There's a counter in the left corner that says day 1. Over time, the days go up, and at 100 days, you can set these sort of starting conditions. You can either try to make it to 120 days, which is easier because you have more time to prepare for the sort of waves. But every 10 days or so, just like an increasingly large horde of enemies spawns on the map somewhere, which already includes not billions, but presumably hundreds of enemies, and so you're trying to carve out this horde that already exists and is populated on the map, and then also they just spawn in massive amounts of enemies that attack you at sort of predetermined times. You're doing this up to day 100 is your goal to survive, and it's really hard to even make it to day 60. It took me several playthroughs to even get a decent way into this game and even discover the later tech trees, because it's just really fucking difficult. But one time I could tell just based on the seed of the map, I started out sort of near a lake and there was a forest near me, and when the enemies spawn in, they spawn in from a direction. So it'll say there's a horde approaching from the east, and so you have a minute to kind of build up your defenses on the eastern area of your map and kind of guess at how they're going to attack you. But you can also sort of engineer your base from the start to kind of you sort of make calculations as the game goes on. I'm going to expand just far enough so that I'm creating a natural choke point between these two areas of geometry on the map. And so you're just trying to make all of these preparations for these sort of north, south, east, west attacks, without really knowing kind of what the end game is, which I kind of assumed the end game would just be a larger horde of guys that just come from one direction. And so I finally had the perfect seed where I'm just fucking nailing everything. I've got the end game units, which are just big hulky guys with rocket launchers. And
so I have a quick question for you.
Yeah,
Nick.
go ahead.
Sorry, you said that in this scenario you were near a lake. Was that strategically to your advantage because guys don't go across it,
yes.
Or does that actually also mean that boats are going to just come up on you?
No, the enemy types are actually fairly similar in the sense that they're zombies, faster zombies, big zombies. They're all just basically land-based guys that get funneled down tubes. They're basically just they're just
billions of guys funneled down tubes.
Billions of guys just getting funneled down tubes, and and
from
so
one direction.
I get to day 85. You're thinking, okay, there's probably going to be 2 more waves. I'm going to have to prepare for one more wave that's sort of just standardly difficult, and then probably the end game thing. So I'm kind of doing this calculation of I shouldn't spend all of my resources yet. I'm going to sort of just continue to kind of expand my base and sort of build up my walls and things. And I get to day 88, and it just says there's a horde coming. They are billions.
Oh shit!
Oh fuck! Happened. They finally dropped the billions card. It's finally they are billions. And then I look, and at this point you build up sort of radar towers that show you the mini map in totality, with perfect precision, so you can see all the dots on the map. Mm-hmm. It literally just spawns in a billion guys. Up to that point, it's just been hundreds. But it spawns in a billion. There are billions, and my machine just started chugging, and I couldn't do anything.
In code is billions.
I was
which just means the game is actually going to destroy your computer.
It's just unplayable. It's just everything's slowed to a crawl. I could just see just
billions,
billions of guys just ticking across the mini map without me being able to really do much about it. I start sending all
billions
of my
guys ticking.
They're all coming from different directions. I just kind of threw my hands up and just watched a slideshow of just billions of things just demolishing this like perfect work that I had tried to construct.
Yeah.
That's under the assumption
that you're
that
right that this is not my game.
Oh no, it is not your game at all. But it's a very good game actually.
Except when it ruins your computer and makes itself unplayable because they are billions.
It's early access, Chris. But yes,
Do you think this is going to be like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, sort of spawning the battle royale genre, where now there will be like Anno, they are billions, or like people will just mod billions modes into other games. They just honestly slowly spawn pockets of enemies and then
Fatso's billions.
Ratso
oh man,
billions.
I would make that game.
2027 or whatever, or 2000 billions 2007, an Anno mod. Where just in other games there are now wave-based things that eventually end with it destroying your computer. The sort of thing that ties them in is that you then put as many NPCs as you possibly can into any game after 100 units of time have passed, and then it erases your computer.
Yeah, it's like that game that you can only play it once and then it like deletes itself or whatever.
Yeah, but what if it said that they are billions first and then erased itself? That'd feel way more.
And the rest of your computer.
Yeah. It would have more meaning, I think. It would sort of feel imbued with importance.
Yeah. All right. Well, they are billions.
They are billions. Yeah. I mean, that was a weird segment because I didn't really get to any talk about it at all, but it's fine. It's actually a very good game if you appreciate the style of like an Anno game, but also like just enjoy playing really difficult like RTS scenarios. I think it's sort of like
it sounds like Nick Brecken's game.
Yep, pretty much.
All right. Well, let's take a break.
Let's.
Thanks.
Okay.
Nick, I'm genuinely sorry that segment was as ruined as it was, but I'm not sorry that it was largely ruined. I feel like it could have been 20% less ruined, and I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
I think even if you don't think that you did, you made their billions or whatever it's fucking called. I've totally forgotten the name of the game.
Pretty sure that I know it's called. The one thing I know about this game for certain is that it's called They Are Billions.
They are. Yeah, you actually made that sound incredibly appealing.
Yeah, I agree.
I would really like though for were someone to make a They Are Billions mod for other games like Anno, for it to be only triggerable by Twitch chat.
What does that mean?
Like you're in the middle of building your perfect Anno city or like your fucking planet coaster, and then if chat just starts screaming "They are billions" at a certain threshold, the game just suddenly goes "They are billions," and you're like, "Oh my god!"
It's gated by how many people are in Twitch chat. It's like an exponential factor of the number of people currently in Twitch chat in this channel.
Weirdly encourage Twitch chat brigading of games that are known to have "They are billions" exploits hidden in them.
So just normal games.
So like your Twitch chat gets beset by billions, but then they start demanding They Are Billions happens.
Yeah, you're playing your billions enabled Dear Esther mode.
Right.
And then the fucking Twitch brigade comes in. Oh, fuck, it's billions.
Yeah, if your HUD in any random game could suddenly say, Horde incoming, They Are Billions. And why did I stream this? I don't know what that would do to They Are Billions. Your PC just crashes instantly.
Your computer just explodes. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6.
All right.
Sorry, I was a little ahead on tempo there.
1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6.
Got to get that good tempo.
I still feel like I was a couple beats ahead, but it's fine.
What? 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6. I think we locked it in there. I think we're good.
Good. Given what a precise process this is, which is me basically just mushing the files around until they basically sound right, I'm sure that final tuning will make all the difference.
It seems like you, Chris, could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Nick could just join in for the 4, 5, 6.
We're doing it. Okay. 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6.
Oh, that hurt me to listen to.
I'm so excited. Wow, what a good idea. I'm really excited.
One of you was an HPB and one was an LPB. And it was Nick. Nick is
I'm the HPB.
Nick was the HPB.
If we had like an 8-bit Nintendo intro for this show and we always introduce Nick as our HPB.
Resident HPB.
Yeah.
Our non-resident HPB.
Jesus. Nick is here with a non-resident HPB visa. HPB visa. Jesus. Those are a pretty short order these days. Not a lot of HPBs these days.
Yep.
In 2018. It's a hot button issue. Are high-paying bastards stealing American jobs? All these overseas people with their high pings logging into our games.
Are high-paying bastards stealing American kills?
Oh, God. This weekend PUBG news.
Yeah.
Hello, readers. Due to scheduling issues, this episode of Idle Thumbs was recorded over 2 different days. And due to technical issues on the second of these 2 days, Nick Brecken's microphone had some kind of malfunction, and we are left only with the backup audio from his webcam that we use to Skype during the recording. So the second half of this podcast, unfortunately, sounds bad. At least Nick's voice sounds bad. At least the recording of Nick's voice sounds bad. Nick's voice itself still sounds great, but you may not be able to tell because the recording is bad. Really sorry about that. We will have it fixed in the future. This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Casper. Mattresses sent to your home to sleep on. Get this. Whoa. This is a change since the last time we talked about Casper. There's 3 of them now. Jake, what do you think the 3 ones are called?
Wait, hold on. I think one of them might be called the Wave.
Oh my God, you're correct. That is true.
Okay, one of them is called probably maybe the original or the classic.
That's actually completely correct. The original Casper is also one.
I will never guess the third one because I only remember you talking about the Wave during the break.
It is the Essential.
Oh, I should have known.
Oh, you missed that.
The original Casper, the Wave, and the Essential. 3 options, 3 Casper options for you. To soothe and cradle your natural geometry, if you know what I mean. And if you ever struggle with staying cool at night, this will regulate that. It'll regulate that shit.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about it. And it comes in a tiny box that explodes into your home with a mattress
and
that
then
comes
it says,
out of it.
"Stay cool, I'm the Wave." You're like, wow, I'm so glad I picked this Wave.
Yep. You can try this yourself if you go to casper.com/thumbs and get $50 towards select mattresses, and that comes with a 100-night risk-free trial.
And then it explodes. It says, "Regulate your cool, I'm the original." And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. Nick Brecken, I know you once had a Casper that you're now without, being up in Canada.
I am, yeah.
Do you miss it?
I miss it so much.
Yeah.
I wish
your cool has been
yeah, my cool.
Your cool's been notably unregulated, Nick.
I know.
Deregulation
terrible.
of cool.
Yeah.
Has occurred. If you're really jonesing for that cool regulation, head over to casper.com/thumbs, Nick Brecken, to get $50 towards select mattresses. This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace, as you surely know by now, is the fastest, the easiest, the most user-friendly and customer-supported way to make your very own professional website, portfolio, blog, or online store. That's like one of my favorite collection of syllables in my repertoire. Just bang that right out. Because it's so true. I've started putting together...
It's fun to say because it's true.
Well, I've started putting together a just sort of personal portfolio with Squarespace. I am making slow progress, but that is entirely on me and not on Squarespace. The blocker is internal. But if you go to squarespace.com, you can start setting up a website with there's no strings or anything. You just start making it and do all the stuff and explore all the tools. And only when you are ready to check out do you use the offer code THUMBS to get 10% off your first order. And if you have any problems when you're making that website, they have 24/7 customer support. So you can always figure out what's going on, and you never have to maintain it or patch it or update it or do any of that garbage. You just make a website.
You can just let it rot away like a regular website. But it'll stay up, though, this time.
But it'll continue working on all devices, even as they improve
you,
and
the
change.
person who created it, neglects it.
And eventually crumbles to dust, as will we all. Yeah.
You'll be dust, but you'll be remembered by your website.
Will still work responsibly on all the latest
in your
devices.
will, say, put my website on an iPad on my gravestone, comma, it's a Squarespace website, so it'll still be up.
Put it on an iPad or whatever the new one is. It'll definitely work with my Squarespace site.
Yeah, after I'm a dusty skeleton.
Signed me, a dusty skeleton. Head over to squarespace.com. Use the offer code THUMBS for 10% off. This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by Movement Watches. Yeah. Affordable, stylish watches that you wear and they tell you the time.
That little was real good.
Well, it's from the heart, Jake.
Got that colloquial NPR man going.
Is that what that is?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, anyway, keep talking about movement watches.
Oh, that NPR guy knows what time it is. Because he's wearing a movement watch. I mean, you can't tell because it's the radio, but he's there. He's got it. And he's selected from doubled the number of sizes formerly available for movement watches. Yeah, think about it. If you go to mvmt.com/thumbs, you can get 15% off with free shipping and free returns. That's mvmt.com/thumbs for a stylish watch, as well as now additional accessories like women's bracelets and sunglasses, other things to complement your accessorized reality. Jake, you have a movement watch.
I do.
Yeah. It's a nice sort of minimalist one, very suited to you, Jake.
I would describe myself as nice and minimalist.
Yeah. I would say that is part of your aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
They've got a bunch of different styles, including that and some more involved styles.
If you're more of an involved individual.
Right.
If you'd consider yourself nice and involved.
If you head over to mvmt.com/thumbs, browse all of these styles from nice and minimalist to nice and involved, and get 15% off. That's mvmt.com/thumbs.
Enough of this capitalist nightmare. Let's talk about video games.
I need to say one thing before we you get into your thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
Okay. Hey.
Hey.
It's been several days since we recorded the first half of this podcast.
I really wanted to say 1 week.
Oh, it's been one. Oh, yeah. I needed to say one thing about Celeste because since we finished recording the first half, I finished the game. And I want to make sure that I don't sound like a douchebag on this podcast because I think I just got done in the timeline of actually recording this podcast describing the game as like being in a pinball machine. And then I literally loaded the game up a couple hours after we finished that to play the level in which you are literally just ping-ponging off of pinball,
so there's a Sonic
mechanics.
pinball
basically
level.
Yeah, you're just a pinball guy. So anyway,
so I would describe it as like a pinball machine, as the B-roll footage behind you is literally the pinball level.
Yeah. I had no idea.
That's a metaphor reaching the incredible heights, Nick, of your metaphor about me having 9,999 toads in Super Mario Run being equivalent to me having a football team consisting of 9,999 players. That's the sort of metaphorical genius that we're dealing with here.
Yep. Anyway.
Isn't a metaphor just when something literally is the thing?
Yeah.
That's what I was raised to believe.
I agree.
I mean, it's almost as though you're in a pinball. It's almost as though you're in a sort of life-sized pinball construction.
Yeah.
If you could imagine such a thing.
Right.
Well, I also have played a bunch more of it since we talked about it 5 minutes ago in this podcast, but days ago in our lives. Podcasts are just weird time warps that we exist in. Sometimes is how it feels to me. But I played through what has been my least favorite part of it so far, which was a sort of boss.
Let's describe it in some sort of allegory first.
It's almost as though you were escaping from a boss across the duration of the level while completing the game's sort of typical platforming, and it's almost like you would die if you touched the boss at any point. It's kind of like that. Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
It sort of gives you a sensation as though that were what is happening.
You can bop him on the head, Chris, but
that's true. You can bop it on the head. It's almost like you could do that.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. I wasn't as big a fan of that, but I finally, mainly because I myself needed to get all the strawberries, which are the sort of, in the game there are strawberries that are littered throughout the world, and there's a finite number of them, and you can collect them, and the thing you get for having collected them is you have them now. It's just sort of it's like in a Mario game where you collect I don't actually even remember what they are in Mario games.
Coins?
Red coins?
Yeah.
Like a red coin or like a regular coin?
You're correct. I forgot that they were coins. I'm sorry. I'm not as Mario literate as...
It's like...
I'm not trying
It's like those dots you collect in Pac-Man. What are those called? Dots. Oh, it's a pellet. Fuck.
I'm not trying to do that. I just had a moment of forgetfulness. Christ, never mind. I'm ejecting out of this whole conversation.
Sure.
I didn't enjoy the boss level as much, but I finally completed it, and I intend to continue playing the game. The other thing I've honestly really been playing to a point where it's actually becoming sort of destructive. Not that's putting it too far, destructive in my life, but definitely monopolizing my time in a way that has become unsatisfying to me because the game is so goddamn good. Is the new game from, I think his name is pronounced Michael Brough, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would be, but I think that might be how his name is pronounced.
It's spelled Brough. Is that right?
Yeah, Brough. Have you guys played anything by this developer?
Yes.
He made 868 Hack and another
he made
kind Imbroglio, which I played a lot of, and I believe I talked about on this podcast some time ago. This new game is called Cinco Paus, Cinco space Paus, and it's kind of like Imbroglio in that it's a iPhone or maybe also Android roguelike in which each level is sort of one screen on your iPhone, and you move around it, and the enemies move as you move in, I guess, classic sort of rogue fashion. A thing that is very notable about this game when you start is that it is entirely in Portuguese, and that is not a setting you can change. It is like that for everyone, regardless of what territory in which you reside. And so what that essentially means is if you don't speak Portuguese, which I assume is a majority of the audience of this game, it means you essentially have to just figure out all the rules yourself. It's essentially sort of a tongue-in-cheek way to completely obscure what the rules of the game are, and you have to just learn them through playing. And it's wonderful. I mean, it's kind of wonderful. It's so strange, and the game has a ton of one-star reviews on the App Store, presumably because people assume this is like a bug that they can't change the language, but it is clearly intentional. And the way the game works is you have 5 wands, which I think is referred to in the name of the game, and each wand at the beginning, what they do is totally randomized and secret at the beginning. So when you use a wand, it'll do some stuff. It might sort of take 1 point of damage off an enemy. It might cause an explosion that does a splash radius and does a point of damage to everyone in that splash radius. It might pick up a piece of treasure if the sort of like blast from the wand passes over the treasure. It might duplicate an enemy or a piece of treasure if it passes over that
wand.
thing. And the more you use the wand, the more you see little icons that show up next to the wand that show what it does. Some of them are very obvious, some of them are less obvious, and because the sort of tooltips are not in a language probably most players are conversant in, you have to just keep playing until you understand what the wands do. And some of them took me a very long time to understand. And then the way this works is essentially every playthrough of the game has 5 levels, and if you successfully complete all 5 levels, you're taken back to the start screen of the game, and then when you start the next level, the next sort of playthrough, your point total picks up from where you left off the previous game. So the point of the game is to try and chain through as many playthroughs as you can without dying, because once you die, you lose your whole chain. There's some other stuff in terms of being able to collect artifacts that persist over games as well. It's not really worth getting into here. But essentially, it means it's a high score thing that chains together a bunch of game playthroughs in a permadeath, with a sort of permadeath requirement. I think my high score is something like 260 or 270, which means nothing if you're just listening to this and haven't played it. But if you have played the game, that will mean something to you. Anyway, the game is called Cinco Paus, Cinco space Paus, and I need to delete it off my phone because I want to play it all the time, because it is so good and so addictive and compelling. And just, I got a lot of mileage initially out of sort of learning the rules, and now I'm getting a lot of mileage out of just becoming really expert. It's one of those games where as I play it, Nick, I feel like you might be someone who could relate to this. And if not, then I'm just going to say something very embarrassing, which is that when I'm playing it, there are moments when you are in a really difficult spot. And let's say you're like 5 chained playthroughs deep. So it's very risky. And you're like, fuck, I have this wand and I know some of the stuff it does, but I don't know all the stuff it does. And I'm going to fire it in this direction, and what could happen is I could fucking blow up all those enemies, and another thing that could happen is I teleport right into the middle of all of them, and they destroy me. And so it's a lot of it is sort of risk assessment and your kind of just intuition after playing enough of the game to get a sense of how this sort of flow works, combined with just rolling the dice sometimes. And I'll have moments where I'll pull something off that feels incredible because it's a combination of a bit of luck combined with my deep understanding of the game, and then it works. And I'm like, oh shit. And I have this shameful, hilarious, horrible thing where I imagine myself like participating in an esports event where I'm playing this and it's like on a big screen and there's thousands of people in a stadium and like all of them understand sort of everything that's at stake because they understand the game very deeply, you know, and then they see me do the thing and there's like oh no, because everything takes like a couple seconds to play out and then it works. And I just imagine people going like, blah, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, and then you complete the chain and go to the next playthrough. It's so dorky and embarrassing and ridiculous, but it sort of creates that kind of feeling because you're making these bets that sometimes fail but sometimes pay off, and it's the way that I guess gambling kind of is, where depending on the game at least, it's a combination of luck but also your skill kind of in conversation with luck.
Right, you're sort of learned intuitions playing against sort of what's against the odds, basically.
Yeah, and it's so satisfying, and it's anyway, Cinco Paus, it's very good.
You should, okay, I'm about to say a stupid sentence because it's a phone game, but it would probably be really fun to stream that game.
Yeah, I don't know how I would do that.
I think that
it also kind of requires the audience to understand it. I guess I could talk through it.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun. All right, well, should we do some reader mail unless either of you have anything else? Okay.
Yeah, let's reader mail it.
This is a fun one. Chris Gwynn writes, on a recent podcast, you lamented there is no longer hardware capable of playing Flappy Bird. This is not true, but probably not in the way you think. In October 2016, my family and I decided to go on a short trip to the Wisconsin Dells. We stayed at one of the weird water park resorts there, and I took a couple of trips to the arcade with the kids. While I was there, I saw a bizarre sight. A Flappy Bird arcade machine.
Yep.
I was surprised and delighted, so I took a picture, which I've attached. But where did this thing come from? Who ported Flappy Bird to arcade, and how? Is it officially licensed? I got curious after listening to Idle Thumbs number 315 and did some digging. The arcade version is made by Baytech Games of Wisconsin. There is nothing about Baytech Games that makes you think they would port iOS games to arcade hardware, although they are part of a conglomerate called The Village that is the weirdest assortment of businesses I've ever seen. It took some digging, but I found the service manual for the game. Sadly, it isn't just a phone in a big box. I couldn't manage to track down the part numbers either, so I have no idea what's running this thing inside of it. I'm assuming it's the Android version of Flappy Bird with some extra hardware, but that wouldn't explain how it can spit out tickets. Clearly, it can output the score in some way. I'm tempted to call Baytech, but maybe this mystery will need to be solved by someone else. And no, I didn't play it. I've never played any version of Flappy Bird. Hope this is interesting. Chris Gwynn. P.S. They also had a Crossy Road game from a different company. Somehow that seems less strange to me. It's just a big box with a little Windows PC inside, and we already knew there was a Windows port of Crossy Road. Yeah, that is bizarre.
I will say you missed out by not playing Flappy Bird. It's a great game.
Oh yeah, Flappy Bird is great. If I were there, it would have ruined my vacation.
Chris, what if you could have played a Flappy Bird that would give you tickets as a reward for doing well?
I would have just sat there playing Flappy Bird for the whole time while my kids, my hypothetical non-existent kids,
or like gone on water slides over there.
Yeah, or like drowning or whatever.
Well, you are drowning in tickets, celebrating your success.
Yep. And then drowning in prizes for my dead kids. Well, that was dark. Sorry.
Jesus. This game has caused me nothing but trouble, so I have erased it.
Too late, it turns out.
What was the actual Flappy Bird quote? It was something like that.
Oh, yeah. Right. This game has ruined my simple life or whatever.
That's what you say after that Flappy Bird arcade scenario happens.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, you should explain what you're referring to.
The guy who created Flappy Bird created it and put it up, and then Flappy Bird blew up in a huge way. And he was basically rich overnight, it seemed like, from not from App Store, but from ad revenue, right? Because it was a Unity game made with a Unity ads thing, I think. And it seemed like it was just overwhelming with both the attention and money he had received. So he said, this game has ruined my simple life, so I have erased it or something. And then he put it back in a different form eventually that was worse, I think.
Yeah.
I think that there's like but original simple...
Wait, can you actually still get Flappy Bird on the App Store?
I think you can get a different variant of Flappy Bird. The original Flappy Bird, known as just Flappy Bird, is no more.
Yeah.
Unless you have a phone running iOS 10 and never erased the original Flappy Bird.
And I loved Flappy Bird. I got really good at Flappy Bird and played a lot of it.
Yeah,
it's the kind of dumb thing that I'm super susceptible to. I mean, when I say dumb, I don't mean that the game itself was bad. It was actually like a great
Yep. And then he put out the sort of spiritual successor that was the game where you were a guy with like a helicopter on your head or something like that. And that game was fucking hard. And then he made it easy and lame after like 2 days. So there was that like 48-hour window of there being an amazing successor to Flappy Bird that then everyone complained was hard.
I mean, if you search for Flappy Bird on the App Store, there's definitely nothing that comes up that looks like an actual... I mean, it's all just ripoffs.
Yeah. So you got to go to that water park.
Yeah. I hope that is the one like way that Flappy Bird legitimately continues to exist, is that he thought this would be a low profile enough
like
way
a big one button
to continue
cabinet.
Yep. Just licensing it to this weird Wisconsin company. Also, this person's right that the holding company or whatever it is called The Village that owns Baytech Games is a very odd... I went to their website, and it is just a company that itself owns a bunch of other Wisconsin companies that have nothing in common. There's like a sporting goods thing and some kind of like metalworking or machining or something division, and then also just a video game
What if they
division.
all have the Flappy Birds license?
Yeah. Felix writes... In a past episode of Idle Thumbs, you mentioned the idea of having a game that lets you play split screen and still have full display, but the perspectives would only be able to be seen by wearing glasses or colored filters. Well, your concoction to revolutionize split screen gaming has become a reality, just not in the way you expected. And then he or she links to something called MirraViz, MARRAVIZ, which is a very interesting technology. I'll explain in a second. Anyway, this reader concludes, keep up the great podcast. I'm keeping it spicy down here in Australia. Thanks, Felix. So, did you guys look this up? Did you see what this was?
I did, but it's been days and I've now forgotten what it was.
This is I don't entirely understand how this works, but it is a special projector and a special projector screen that you install, and it shows an entirely different image depending on the angle that you're viewing it at. So if you have two different people sitting on a couch, and one is like sort of looking...
You need a special screen for it?
Yes.
Okay.
And one is looking left at 15 degrees, the other person's on the other side looking right at 15 degrees, they will see two totally different images. And they can play...
I wonder if that's just like a micro level version of sort of like the folded paper illusion. Yeah, like lenticular thing. But the projectors are offset by just the right angles.
I'm looking at a quote here from them if you guys want me to explain what this actually is.
Yeah.
This is the basic physics principle for one of the key optical layers includes the use of retroreflection optical elements, which are also used in traffic signage and bicycle reflectors. The basic idea behind retroreflection is that light reaching one of the retroreflection elements will be reflected back to the source of the light regardless of the incident angle. This is different from typical reflective surfaces, etc., etc. So there you go. It's like a sign or a bicycle reflector. There you go.
It's basically like a traffic sign.
Well, I mean, those are...
I believe you that's true, but I still don't really
The intent behind traffic signs is to focus the reflection just back on you so that they're not just shining all the time.
Got it.
But I don't know how that works.
I don't understand how that works with multiple. I mean,
let's just assume that it is patented.
It seems to work. That you can watch a video of it where the camera sort of, moves, and you can see the image.
So if you're like
change.
the third sibling who's playing this console, it sucks probably.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just two or if it's an arbitrary number or what. I don't know. It's very interesting though.
He likes his PlayStation 4. She likes her Xbox.
Yeah. Oh, that was
this wedding's over.
That actually was something that was sort of, if you watched the CEO or whoever of this company explain it, it was actually kind of a bummer because because it was like
I like my sports.
No, well, no, not in that way, but in a more generalized, non-gender specific way, where it was something like, these days everyone's just on their own devices, ignoring each other. But what if you could be sitting on the same couch, each doing your own thing and like not communicating?
That's literally the same as one person just has an iPad.
I know.
But what if instead you have a bespoke projector system installed in your home?
It's like one person could be watching a movie and the other person could be playing their video game. Because it was exactly that. It was like
the other person could have a blank screen and ear dampening headphones. That's the most sort of like sad 1950s household thing.
Right. What, just TV dinners? And,
but just like your TV could have two different things at once.
Yeah. Yep.
So the kids can watch their cartoons.
So that's what that is.
That's weird.
It is very weird.
One note about that real quick, though. The split screen thing. Doing that in a movie theater and just giving people slightly different movies.
Where the ending is just slightly different.
Yeah, the soundtrack is the same, but like one person sees the killer quietly walk away and the other person doesn't.
Oh, shit.
Or something like that, where it's just a quiet moment and it's either the shot or the reverse shot, depending on which side of the theater you're on. Or if you're dead in the middle, it's the artiest art film and you're like, what is this? Just like sort of half blob.
In either case,
double exposure.
In either case, it's all the same until the very end.
Yeah. You're just like,
what? Weird ending to that movie, huh? And everyone agrees with you, but for different reasons.
Right. Yes, yeah.
Oh, that would be so good to do that and not tell anyone.
Right.
Not issue a press release about
weird ending, huh, is correct. Like how you saw the guy. What? I don't think... what's the guy?
No, I thought it was weird that you didn't.
The other guy? Who?
Like what? The what guy? Like,
I thought it was just that strange shot. It was really interesting.
Oh, just like how it was just kind of weird and impressionistic and sort of just blurry and weird. Yeah. Man, that would be an incredible, strange...
That's the only valid use for this.
That is definitely the highest calling of this technology.
To annoy moviegoers for one shot after this super expensive installation where you have to install 2 whole new projectors and a new full movie screen.
Well, if the screen is backwards compatible with normal screens, then you're fine.
Yeah, I don't know if it is.
I don't know either. It probably is.
Okay.
I declare that it is. Eric writes, Far Cry 2 is now backwards compatible on Xbox One. Signed, Eric. Weigh in number 6 on the forums.
Hey, sweet, good news, important news.
Yeah.
Play Far Cry 2.
Now you can introduce your friends to this baffling and infuriating game that we deeply love and think everyone should love, but a lot of people don't.
But really, just go buy it on Steam. It's probably cheap many times a year.
That's true.
That's the better version.
But if you only have an Xbox device of some sort.
That's true.
Yeah.
Use the fact that it's on Xbox to tell your friend to go play the PC version. Yeah.
Zenith writes, Jake's theory about why Zelda and Sheik's abilities have to be kept separate to maintain Link's dimension-napped plot innocence has actually been lent a certain amount of credence by HAL Laboratory, given the most recent versions of Smash fully separate Zelda and Sheik into their own selectable characters, replacing the transformation abilities. Zelda gained a Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks reference in the form of a Phantom Summon special, and Sheik sadly gained yet another acrobatic ninja ability instead of something more flavorful like a magic harp special. Lore aside, this was generally seen as a smart design move because players that favored one form over the other simply stayed in that form, and there were never any Pokemon trainer-like mechanics encouraging or punishing the decision, plus the transformation ability itself just opened her up to a free attack. Zenith from San Francisco. P.S. This design approach was also extended to Samus and Zero Suit Samus, so what does this say about people's plot innocence about the ending of the first Metroid? I don't remember what happens at the end of the first Metroid.
I think it's Samus has not got the suit on anymore, and you go, oh, it's a girl.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That, okay, right.
But now they can coexist.
Not the plot ending, I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that says about Samus and Samus. I feel like it actually invalidates my Zelda theory, not confirms it, because now Zelda and Sheik can coexist on the same screen before the eyes of Link.
I don't even remember what your theory was.
Oh, that I can't remember. I thought it was about trying to hide the transformation from Link. I can't remember anymore. I totally can't remember. Maybe they're right. They're probably right. God, I can't recall at all. I thought it was where does Smash Brothers fit in the Zelda continuity?
Oh, right. It was something like that. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't. Oh my God. Well, it's a monthly podcast, folks.
Stay tuned next month when Jake resolves this fascinating theory. Half of you will hear one convincing resolution. Another half of you will hear an entirely different.
And the people right on the edge will hear.
And the people in the middle, will just hear the audio difference between the two, which will be completely incomprehensible.
Disgusting. Yeah, stay tuned for 10 minutes after this podcast when I go back and listen to last week's episode and go, oh yeah, that's what it was, and then maybe put a tweet out about it in a couple days, or forget by next podcast.
Well,
that's the good content that people come here for.
It is. Ruslan writes, I love you guys.
What? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks, Ruslan.
I love you too, Nick, but you can use your real name.
Oh my God, we have so much more email I didn't read. I didn't even realize this. Holy shit. Do you guys have a few more minutes?
Yeah, I do.
Like 10 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. Vincent Stoll writes, hello, Idle Thumbs.
Hi, Vincent.
The day after Nintendo's announcement of Labo. Oh, we haven't talked about Labo.
Whoa, we haven't talked about Labo.
Oh.
Are you guys stoked about Labo?
I love Labo.
Labo's great.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited about stupid Labo.
What is Labo? I mean, I know what it is, but what is it?
It's a new sort of line of like craft toys that Nintendo has announced for the Switch. It's basically like sort of maker culture style toys that are basically large pieces of cardboard that are pre-scored to be folded together in a kind of in an IKEA or Lego style to make, like, one of the examples is like a little cardboard toy piano, or like a fishing pole, or there's even one where you can build like a backpack that has little strings that connect to shoes and fists, and it's a robot. And the way that it actually works and is more than cardboard is that
It's ingenious.
It's so fucking good. God, you disconnect the Joy-Cons from the sides of your Switch and slide them into various places inside of those little Labo arts and crafts, like paper fold things that you make, and it uses all of the sort of Wii style technology that's inside of the Joy-Cons to communicate back to the Switch with what's going on. So, like, the craziest example is one of the two Joy-Cons has an IR camera in the bottom of it that's not used for a lot that I know of right now, but the IR camera side of the Joy-Con points into the back of the piano, and it has on each of the little cardboard keys, there's little reflective white dots, and the camera just looks and sees which of those dots moves and then tells the Switch to play a piano sound effect.
That's so strange and interesting.
The way the robot one works, the backpack is so big because the camera needs to be able to see inside it, because the strings that connect the shoes to the backpack and the fists to the backpack are actually sliding white lines up and down, like on a sort of like pulley system. So that when you extend your arm to punch, a little white line moves up inside the backpack because it sort of gets pulled by the string, and the camera sees that, and the farther you extend or retract your arm, it maps that to a mech inside of the video game. So as you stomp around and swing your arms, like, it ends up replicating like what looks like demos for like virtual reality things for using like Vive controllers, but it's done in like
it's in the actual world.
Yeah, it's in the actual world with a cardboard thing you made. It basically is like Nintendo. Do you remember when that Jack Black movie, the Jack Black and Michelle Gondry movie, Be Kind Rewind, came out, and it was like Jack Black accidentally erased all the videos in his home video store, then remade them real quick out of cardboard, and it was like the most sort of loving and cute aesthetic in the world. This feels like Nintendo looked at all of the weird future tech stuff that everyone was doing and went, what if instead we just made them out of cardboard and they were just as fun? And that's the feeling that I got. And then that was like their initial announcement. Then it came out that there's in fact like build your own construction kits in the software where you can actually say, okay, if the IR camera sees this,
like design your own,
then that means do this thing in the game, so on screen, so you can sort of chain your own inputs and outputs together along with your own cardboard construction. I think it's awesome. I mean, it's for everyone who lived through sort of the Rock Band and like Tony Hawk plastic skateboard controller era of video game peripherals, it's so fucking good that Nintendo made ones that if they break, you can put tape on them and they're fine. If you're done with them, you can recycle them or literally flat pack them into sheets of paper that just go into a shelf.
I mean, like to be fair, it would not be practical to release a Guitar Hero or a Rock Band game with cardboard instruments, because they just wouldn't hold up to how you want to treat those. But I know what you mean.
I mean, like even like or the Wii Sports era where people were like steering wheels and tennis rackets and all of this stuff for just kind of just augmented waggling.
Yep, definitely.
This is the new tier of augmented waggling.
And these are actually more intricate and interesting.
Yes,
but also they aren't going to just like stay in your house.
Yeah, I like that building them is part of it. I like that Nintendo really heavily promoted just like letting kids color them in with markers and just draw all over them. Like it's really good. And it pairs with the Switch hardware in such a creative way that feels like kind of a vindication of or like just a good, really positive use of all of the weird gimmicky shit that Nintendo's been putting in their systems for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm really excited about that Labo. I said I wouldn't order one, and then I pre-ordered it.
Well, then you bear something in common with this reader, Vincent, who says, the day after Nintendo's announcement of Labo, I went on Amazon to see if pre-orders were up already. They were not. But instead, I found the mobile game to end all mobile games. Please enjoy the description of Consumer Game War.Improved. Which is what somehow came up when he searched for Nintendo Labo on Amazon. And the product features of Consumer Game War.Improved. That's like war.improved is one thing, as though it were a URL.
Okay.
So consumer space game space war.improved. Product features. You can learn fun history of the game. It becomes the emotional feeling to be, played a long time ago now that you mention it. This is applicable to know the history of the game. I do not collect to the history enthusiast. That Mario gains control of the Japanese market, Pokemon, exhaustively. Hot development begins now. Is the present age the times to be able to enjoy a game free anywhere with a smartphone, even when? However, I ever paid money and played a game in a house. Okay, having been able to enjoy an expensive game of the quality like now, this is because there are ancient people who made a game market. Not only Nintendo and Sony, but also Tommy Takara participated in the game industry and made the history. Many dramas and laughter are born in the market when a fierce battle is developed. It does not stop to the last when I begin to look. In the quality such as the movie, I can enjoy the history of the game. What kind of one is it recommended in? The person who likes a game, the person who likes the history, the person who likes war, the person who likes great erudition. In fact, the person who likes having been the person who likes hot development. It is such contents. I like that. It is such contents. The style is being made conscious of the Super Robot Great War. For 1,975 years, I begin with the birth of the company in an epoch. When the history knows an appearance company, the apparatus sequentially because there is much information because watching application I can enjoy it more. Being surprised whether the appearance company entered the company such as learning meeting for the study, Casio from influential figures such as Nintendo, Sony a lot. The apparatus comes up diversely from good old TV tennis to the present age of PS3. Because Donkey Kong, a celebrity place including Mario are introduced, the software is easy to get close.
You've activated like 3 AIs in the world by reading that was somehow an encrypted piece of information.
Yep. Well.
Donkey Kongs.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that movie King of Kong when it came out about the Donkey Kong Championships?
Yeah.
Did you see
that, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember how it's kind of the story of like the down home guy and then sort of the like douchey 80s guy with like 80s hair who was like the hotshot champion guy?
Who had his own hot sauce brand somehow also?
So he eventually ended up just destroying the sort of nice regular guy's record from the movie, and it recently, a big scandal has broken out in the Donkey Kong.
Recently, like now?
Like the last 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay, I have not seen this.
He has been submitting his scores to the sort of regulating body of Donkey Kong arcade scores.
Is that Twin Galaxies?
Yeah. He's been submitting scores that have just been demolishing people, and someone finally, like, they're just camcorder shots or like direct capture off of what looks like a CRT, and a few people on the Donkey Kong forum have become suspicious of it, and I may be not up to date on the latest, but when I read about this a couple days ago, they had started going through like field by field and frame by frame and looking at how the screen refreshes when it draws levels.
Whoa.
And found out that he was playing on a sort of jacked version of an old version of MAME.
Oh,
and then running it through filters.
Oh, man.
And they're like, yeah, the hardware board doesn't refresh like that, but MAME does. And they think that he has been basically cheating and doing what we talk about with like Gordon Freeman style, like perfect run-throughs, where he'll like run in MAME, then back up, then run, then back up, and then release a MAME playback of his ideal playthrough as if he's playing it on Donkey Kong hardware. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything.
Did you remember that because Donkey Kong?
Yes, because it said Donkey Kong, and I was just reading that article a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And went, wow, Billy Mitchell might be a big cheater.
I thought there were already suspicions that he was some kind of cheater, although definitely not to the extent that's an intense.
I don't know what the resolution is, but like the big Donkey Kong website, like where all these people play, that isn't the Twin Galaxies regulatory body, but this website that posts its own scores, has said, just as a sort of they have decided to their own satisfaction that guy who was like the sleaziest dude in that documentary, is in fact cheating, and they've stricken his scores from good, like, their site.
Cosmic justice.
Yeah. Well, the cosmic justice was that he was apparently using MAME.
Well, no, but I mean, the cosmic justice is that he's been found out.
Yeah, no, it's
he's been proven to be the way that he carries himself.
Yeah, I'll find that forum and send it to you, Chris, so it can go in the show notes. Because just looking at their step-by-steps and the screen grabs of how Donkey Kong redraws, it is a level of obsession that you appreciate, especially if you ever watched King of Kong, like the level of obsession that these people have with this game, but just seeing it applied to unmasking a cheater in the professional circuit of an ancient arcade game is pretty fun.
That's amazing. All right, well, that's I think that's about it for this episode of Idle Thumbs. Anything else from you guys?
No.
All right.
I think we're good.
Well, I think so too. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Idle Thumbs. We will be back mid-month with an episode of the Idle Thumbs Ruination Online, which is our monthly live stream and podcast that we do for people who are high-tier backers of our Patreon campaign. And you can find that at patreon.com/idlethumbs. We'll be back a couple weeks after that with another episode of this podcast, the Idle Thumbs Video Game Podcast. If you like this show, recommend it to a friend. It means a lot to us, and it's really the only way we've grown over the years. And if you want to send us anything to be addressed or read on this podcast relating to video game observations or questions, send them to questions@idlethumbs.net. And we will use our mouths to communicate them and respond. Our website is idlethumbspodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the podcast there or find out other things, I guess. I don't know. All right, that's it. That's it for Idle Thumbs. For Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you...
is by Snyder's of Hanover.
It's brought to you by Crinkling Wrappers.
A new ASMR sensation.